toiling for survival in the mines of Africa. Even children are forced to work here. This kid is 11 years old. And behind this boom, the Chinese. China needs Africa's copper and cobalt to feed its fast-growing economy.
People here, they need work. The Chinese come here. They pay maybe the best salary.
The Chinese bring work and money, but it all comes at a tragic human cost. We began our journey at this coal mine in southern Zambia. We're getting down to the bottom of the shaft. We can hear running water and also the sound of machinery. What's your step now? I must say that the struts don't look terribly strong for me, holding up the roof. This is not a place for the claustrophobic. It's hot. We're way underground. We were 50 meters from the coalface when a dynamite charge exploded. That was quite a big blast. You feel the shock wave coming down the tunnel. And the tunnel's filled with smoke and coal dust. The Chinese are this mine's new owners. Using technology not seen in the West for 40 years, they're making money and providing jobs. After decades of misrule, 2/3 of Zambians live on less than 50 pence a day. But investors like this Chinese company are now helping to unlock the vast potential of Zambia's mineral wealth.
The Chinese people came and asked the government to take over. They said, okay, they are to allow him to take over.
Do you think that the private mines run by the Chinese are more successful?
They are too much successful, yes.
A few years ago, these mines were derelict because the state couldn't run them at a profit. The Chinese have come in here with a minimum of investment in simple machinery and their skills, and they're helping Africa to become profitable. Africa is rich in the commodities China needs to fuel its booming economy. Trade between Beijing and the continent has more than quadrupled since the year 2000. The capital, Lusaka. China first sent aid to Zambia in the 1960s, when Beijing propped up socialist regimes across Africa. Now the Chinese are back. We've heard that China is now giving Zambia military aid, and to give you an idea of the extent of Chinese influence in the continent now, behind us is the main government building, also constructed by the Chinese. Everywhere we saw signs that the Chinese are pouring into this former British colony. 200 companies have invested, many of them working directly for the Beijing government. More are on their way, and they're entering every sector of the economy. We wanted to find out what their plan is. We discovered China is exporting its skills and surplus labour. They face sacrifices that many Westerners wouldn't tolerate. Hardship didn't bother Mr. Tang, foreman at this Chinese construction site.
This job of the job of man's finish like go to China. But you can do for wife.
He's here on a 28-month contract. He won't go home at all during that period. Then he gets 3 months off and he signs up for another contract. He hopes to come back to Zambia, where he says the profits are greater than he can get back home in China. How are the Chinese to work for? Are they fair employers?
Yeah, they are. So far, so good. I've got no complaints.
Chinese are quite fast when it comes to construction. And they could not bring in entirely all their people. They have to engage the local people. a lot of development, and they created a lot of labor and a lot of work for people.
China's real target in this part of Africa is Zambia's copper belt, into which Beijing is pouring billions in investment. We travelled north to this industrial heartland, where Chinese money is reviving ailing state-run mines. We arrived in Chambishi Township on a Sunday to find the residents in church. Many people here work at a nearby Chinese copper mining company. After church, the worshippers took us to a graveyard located right outside the Chinese company's gates. In 2005, tragedy struck when the Chinese factory supplying explosives for the mine blew up, killing all the Zambian workers inside. Tell me what happened.
The temperatures must have gone high, and there were too many people in the factory, too many explosives, and this had caused the blast.
And all of these graves around here are the victims of the blast?
Yes.
How many are there?
46.
All the victims were Zambians, many of them young and unskilled. The Chinese were paying some of them just 50 pence a day. Where were the Chinese when the explosion happened?
They were in their offices, and nobody was in the factory. Nobody was affected. It wasn't normal. It was not supposed to be left to these people to operate the plant, because they didn't know anything.
I noticed this concrete plinth doesn't have a name on it.
That doesn't have anything.
Okay.
That was a mix-up during the post-mortem. Police went in there picking bits and pieces. They thought maybe there were more than 46.
Oh my God! So
yeah.
Because the bodies were so horribly mutilated,
yes,
people didn't actually know how many had died.
Yes.
The grief of these families is still very raw, and what rubs salt into the wounds for them is that the Chinese company, which promised to take care of this cemetery, has instead let it go to grass. The residents said there were other problems with the way the Chinese company operated here. Some workers, too scared to be identified, led us to an area outside one of the Chinese factories. They said that for months, highly acidic effluent had been spilling from a dam into the watercourses. We've come to the boundary of the Chinese company, and this filthy ditch of effluent comes from the plant. And in fact, the stink is so intense that I'm gagging. But I'm just going to take some of this water. You can see that it's not at all clean. There's been absolutely no attempt, as far as I can see, to prevent this filth from getting out of the factory complex and into the water system. So we got this bottle of filthy water, and I've got a pH tester here. So we're just going to find out how acidic it is. It's actually burning my skin. I got it on my face, and it's stinging, and my eyes are stinging as well from the atmosphere here. Water has a pH of 7 when it's neutral. Sulfuric acid has a pH of 1. At around 2.5, this water was still contaminated months after complaints were first made. While we were still at the site, we spotted a group of workers. Do you work for the Chinese?
Yeah.
And you don't have proper protective clothing either. You're working with acid, and you don't have proper protection.
No safety.
No safety.
Yeah. No gloves, no white and white.
Do you always have gum boots, or do you sometimes not have boots?
This is gum boots. They have some smalls inside.
Right, so you've got acid going into your boots.
Yeah.
Do they burn your feet?
Yes.
The company NFC Africa, together with its explosives subsidiary Bgrim, are both partly owned by the Beijing government. We wanted to hear what the Chinese had to say in response to the residents' allegations. We're hoping for an interview with Mr. Wang.
Mr. Wang from
Beegrim.
From Beegrim.
We've just tried to ask for an appointment to see the Chinese managers of NFC Africa and also Beegrim, where the explosion took place. And the mine police have refused us entry, and they don't want us to come in. Yes.
It's not allowed.
Why not?
Taking any photos here is not allowed, please.
Why not?
It's not allowed.
Zambia's government doesn't want anybody to upset the Chinese, who we found are increasingly unpopular. Local people frequently complain to us about the way the Chinese operate in Zambia. Still keen to hear what the Chinese company had to say, we visited the compound where they live in high-security, segregated housing. Can you just tell me, why are you not tending the graves of the Beegrim explosives victims?
Those are questions from the company official information. They have to talk to you.
You in December were producing quite a lot of spillage from the dam. Do you think that your safety measures are adequate to date?
You come here.
Yes,
to ask so many questions.
Yeah, we have tried to.
About those ones.
We've written to you.
Okay.
We've listed all of these questions in letter form.
It's not fair for me.
But you have an opportunity to invite us in to look at what improvements there have been in health and safety, and then also environmental standards. Yeah, but you won't let us do that.
For Beegrim problem,
okay.
You don't ask from NFC. I can advise you.
All right. The man confirmed that he was part of the Chinese company's management, but he refused to reveal his position. What we saw in the copper belt suggested that China brings business to Africa in return for the metals it needs to grow. But the way it operates is often at a terrible cost to ordinary people. We headed for Congo, one of the world's richest nations in terms of mineral reserves. At the frontier, we saw hundreds of trucks. People told us the Chinese were exporting huge quantities of copper and cobalt out of Lubumbashi, capital of Congo's Katanga province. So this man is carrying copper ore for a Chinese company. He's picked it up in Lubumbashi, and he's now in Zambia, and he's taking it to Ndola, where it will be refined. The ultimate destination for most of the ore is China, where the copper will be used to build new cities. The cobalt will end up in mobile phone batteries. We followed the empty trucks as they returned to Congo. Next day in Lubumbashi, we went looking for the mines. At this open-cast pit, hordes of hungry people scratch in the dirt for a living, creating an apocalyptic scene. It's a sort of landscape of a First World War battlefield with sandbags and all sorts of earthworks everywhere. In fact, there are 5,000 to 10,000 people working here every day. Congo recently held elections, but after decades of misrule and civil war, it remains in chaos. Huge fortunes are being made by foreign companies, but the average income here is £60 a year, and life expectancy is less than 45 years. He's saying that he earns £5 or £10 or £15 a day, depending on the amount of material that he can sell. And he sells it to a middleman called a negociant, who then sells it on to the Chinese and other businessmen. Many miners said they earned barely enough to eat, though the price of copper has reached historic levels. They're saying that the Chinese pay low prices, that they lie to them about the purity of the ore that they sell them. The Chinese were driving this back-breaking work, but were conspicuous by their absence. We went to find them. We were told that the mineral wealth in Katanga was traded in the boomtown of Lubumbashi. The Chinese are the latest arrivals to seek their fortunes here, but they were just as elusive in the city as in the mines themselves. On the street, we asked some money changers where we could find the Chinese, since we knew they were going through truckloads of cash. This man says that the Chinese don't like to come here and do business openly in town. They wait in the outlying areas for the money changers to take the money to them. And he says that they give them a very bad rate, that the Chinese are happier to stay in their secret locations and get a bad rate than come here and do business openly. We headed into the countryside, hoping to find the Chinese brokers. We arrived in the village of Luisha, where the copper ore sits just below the surface. The natural wealth of this place hardly benefits the local people, who are among the poorest I'd seen anywhere in Africa. We found the Chinese traders in the back streets buying copper and cobalt ore. Hello. They were shocked to see us and refused to talk point blank. Villagers told us a factory was being built nearby, which has imported dozens of Chinese workers.
Yeah. The Chinese here have refused to talk to us. They run most of the factory here. Hello. How are you?
No, English, no.
No. No. No. This is secret. Secret.
This is secret. No, it's
not open.
We don't know what this guy's problem is. He keeps saying that it's secret, which I think just communicates the attitude of the Chinese here.
A policeman angrily intervened against the Chinese, whom I could see now are loathed by the local Congolese. From what I'd witnessed, the Chinese were secretive and paranoid. We travelled into the jungle, still searching for brokers. Wherever we went, we saw large numbers of Congolese opening up the hillsides.
We're going to the place where they do all the mining outside Kombuvu, and we've heard that there are a lot of kids here. Wow, look at that.
I wondered how old the workers were.
Huh? He claims to be 17 and he claims to be 19, which is obviously nonsense.
I wanted to see for myself where the children were being forced to work, so I followed them. These weren't proper mines, but hand-dug tunnels going deep into the ground.
It's so narrow that it's almost impossible to get down, and these things cave in on a regular basis.
Because the tunnel was so narrow, children were being sent in to haul sacks of rocks. Inside it was dark, hot, and the air was foul. At the end it opened out into a chamber where the bright green copper ore could be hacked out. These kids were risking their lives for a pittance.
With some relief, I'm getting out of this hole and back into the daylight. Bole, Roger. Young Kelly says that he'll take this, he'll sell it to the negociants, who are the middlemen, and the middlemen then sell it to the Chinese. But the negociants are saying that the Chinese pay very badly. They make huge profits, but the money they give to the Congolese is very, very small.
The miners told us that only the day before a man had died nearby when a shaft like the one we had crawled down collapsed. Many of the miners I had seen were children. Tragically, the extraction of copper and cobalt depends heavily on the exploitation of child labour on a vast scale. All this for electrical cables and phone batteries. In the nearby town, we finally found a low-level Chinese broker willing to talk.
卖不出去啊！现在 把挖出桶来卖给我们中国人，他们就有钱了。
He admits that the Chinese are buying from children, and he says that it puts money in their pockets, that without the market of copper for the Chinese, that these children would be starving and they wouldn't be able to buy things.
This Chinese broker told us that back home he had grown up in poverty himself. No wonder he didn't share our shock at the sight of child miners. Back in Lubumbashi, we went to see Moses Katumbi, Katanga's newly elected governor. He's a very powerful mining tycoon himself. I wanted to find out what he thought about the Chinese in his province.
We are looking for everyone to come. Even the Chinese, we are going to keep the good Chinese. Even the European, we are going to keep the good European. Those companies which are not going to contribute for the poverty, they don't have a place in my province.
Child labour is a major issue. What are you going to do about that?
Any mine I found a child, I'll close it up.
I admired the governor for his promises, but I wondered how he was going to stamp out child labour in a place as poor as Katanga. We went west to Kolwezi, where we saw how hard the governor's task is. At this compound, yet again, we encountered the Chinese brokers.
The governor says employing child labour in the mining industry is illegal and that he's going to close down companies that do it. This notice also says that children of less than 18 years old are not allowed in the company grounds, but as we've seen, children are going in and out all the time.
I spoke to Harvey Lee, one of the Chinese managers.
On your gate, you've got a sign saying children of less than 18 years are not allowed in the compound. But don't you acknowledge that the industry uses children and you're buying from them?
I checked, some of our suppliers they use children, maybe to wash the material or something. Yeah, definitely they do that. But for us, we never heard any teenage child here for our labor.
Even if they weren't working directly for his company, Mr. Lee's notice had no effect on the child miners.
Mwakangapi? Tres.
He's 13. Down by the river, I found hordes of kids, some of them toddlers, working to extract and clean copper and cobalt ore. The Chinese were hovering nearby, hungry for as much raw material as the children could bring them.
Mama.
Ya mbaya. Atakulipa bei mbaya paka vile unabebea paka vile utempeleka wa.
This woman says that her sons are helping her to clean out the copper ore and that they have to do it because they need to put food on the table. The Chinese pay badly, but she says, what am I to do? Where am I to send it if I don't sell it to them? By doing business in Africa, China is bringing something to the continent that Western aid has failed to do over the last few decades. But some of the practices of Chinese companies here are in danger of reviving memories of the worst kind of colonial exploitation that a country like Congo is only just recovering from.
Who are we, and where do we really come from? Are Geordies really Vikings? Archaeologist Neil Oliver continues his quest in Face of Britain tomorrow night at 8. Next this evening, a Nottingham couple splits as to whether they want to live in the Lake District or Spain, in A Place in the Sun, home or away.